Oh man. Remember coming home from school and seeing those Toonami promos for Dragon Ball Z?
Best show around.
Toonami really had a stranglehold on awesome shows at that time. I guess it's no surprise then that my brother and I were swept up, along with everyone else in those days. And when we thought no one was looking, you better believe we were trying our best to go Super Saiyan. The cringe of youth aside, it's a great time to be a Dragon Ball fan. And that's in no small part due to the fantastic movies and games that we've seen over the last few years. What's more exciting still is that this influx of new content seems to be showing no signs of slowing down anytime soon. There's a ton to be excited about going into 2023 and beyond. So, raise those power levels and get ready for an intense training session in the hyperbolic time chamber of our minds.
Ready for the pain?
Now, I'll be the first to admit, I'm a bit biased toward Dragon Ball Z over any other Dragon Ball series. It's the one I saw first and the one I admittedly have the most memories of and connection to. I recall wanting to get into drawing during this time, when I first started watching the show. And while I was just never good, I actually grew to hate my friend, who would later become my friend, who was at the time my arch nemesis and childhood rival. Because he could draw Teen Gohan as a Super Saiyan 2 and I couldn't. Moreover, before I even got into this series, I remember hearing some kids at school talking about it. They were so excited. I remember them discussing these weird names and describing this battle taking place that I, for some reason, just kept imagining in the graphic style of that old Donkey Kong Country TV show. Can you imagine if Dragon Ball Z had looked like that? That would have been quite a different show. I think it was the whole bit with Frieza referring to Saiyans as monkeys that had my mind so confused, but anyway. That being said, the Frieza saga itself is probably my favorite in the whole series. There are way too many cool moments to count throughout Dragon Ball Z, but this arc was the first that I ever watched from start to finish. And while I do think Toriyama got a little carried away with Frieza's transformations, seeing Piccolo fusing with Nail, seeing Gohan, Krillin, and Vegeta all giving Frieza and his minions hell, and ultimately seeing Goku go Super Saiyan for the first time, are all cemented in my mind as absolutely classic moments. Now that's not to discount other sagas in the series. Both the Android and Cell sagas are undeniably peak Dragon Ball Z as well, and make up some of the best and most tense moments throughout the show. When we see Piccolo confronting Cell for the first time, and Cell reveals that he can use Piccolo's special attack, it showed us that he had DNA of all the Z fighters and even some of their previous enemies like Frieza. The lead up before and after that fight had pure horror genre vibes written all over it, with the way Cell was consuming entire populations and leaving cities as ghost towns. I don't have as much praise to heap on the Buu saga on the other hand, but that's not to say it wasn't a memorable arc in the show. Buu himself is also a very memorable and a pretty terrifying villain when you realize how cruel and petty he is, even in his first childlike incarnation. But DBZ isn't the only series deserving of praise here. The black sheep of the franchise in Dragon Ball GT was always this alien show to me as a kid. I remember seeing episodes here and there, but not really following the story or the characters with the same weekly sort of episodic fervor that I had with Dragon Ball Z. Even now, I would be hard-pressed to recount exactly what the various storylines are in the show. But they did give Vegeta a pretty fun makeover. I love the little mustache. And they had some interesting villains by the end of the show, as well as some awesome transformations. I think today the show is probably more deserving of a rewatch than ever before. Because with Dragon Ball continuing to grow, it's a great time to reflect on the past works in order to both see where the series is headed today, and where it came from, or what it might have ended up as, if Dragon Ball GT were the last we heard of Toriyama's masterpiece. Oddly enough, Dragon Ball Super almost feels like a different show at times, at least to me. I don't think this is solely due to the change in style of animation that the show uses in contrast to its predecessors, but more so due to the overall extension and rapid growth of what it means to be a powerful character in the Dragon Ball universe. It's not a bad thing necessarily though, and the show also fleshed out the concept of the different universes. It revealed that they were not all entirely unique in the races that inhabited them, as we learned in Super that the universes had their own Saiyan race, their own Namekian race, and more. This actually helped to expand on cool ideas that would have otherwise been much harder to pull off, with the fact that we had seen all but everything to do with Saiyans and Namekians by the end of Dragon Ball Z. Now, I haven't kept up with the latest few arcs in the manga of Dragon Ball Super, but the reboot of Broly in the movie and the Tournament of Power in the show were both exciting stories with great characters, new and old alike, getting some much needed spotlight. Even the age-old Dragon Ball series still holds up today. While some of Master Roshi's antics are harder to watch than others, the spirit of the show hasn't aged a bit, and the start of Goku's journey is still worth revisiting. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Dragon Ball Super has been knocking it out of the park with their newest movies, particularly with the aforementioned Broly reboot movie as well as the new Dragon Ball Super Superhero movie. Who would have guessed that in 2022 we'd get not only a brand new transformation for Gohan, but also an awesome new transformation for Piccolo as well. I admit I did not see that coming, but I was more than happy to see both of them just get some renewed spotlight for themselves. And it's not just the anime and manga that are still going strong today. No, Dragon Ball video games have been absolutely killing it lately as well. While in the past we might have gotten some pretty rough games as fans, it's almost impossible to deny that Dragon Ball games have increased their power levels dramatically over the last 10 years. Back in 2016 we had Xenoverse 2 on PC, PS3, Xbox, you name it, which while not the most balanced fighting game ever, gave us a really fun romp through the DBZ stories, using our own created characters for once. Only in the original Xenoverse and the overseas exclusive MMORPG Dragon Ball Online could you ever play as your own character, your own Namekian, your own Saiyan, your own Majin Buu race, or Earthling to experience Dragon Ball in a whole new way. We also had Dragon Ball FighterZ in 2018, which blasted its way onto the competitive fighting game scene and impressed everyone with its top-tier graphics, faithful art style, and fast-paced gameplay. Then, in 2020, we got our hands on Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, an open-world hybrid between an action-adventure role-playing game and fighting game all wrapped into one. With the release of some amazing DLCs to go along with it, Kakarot really raised the bar for what fans of the series can expect with any future releases. Much like how Dragon Ball Z Battle of Z back on the PS3 was a precursor to gameplay elements we would later see in Xenoverse 2, I personally believe that Kakarot's best parts will be assimilated into the DNA of the newly announced revival and continuation of the much beloved Budokai series with Tenkaichi 4. It's my hope that this new game will give us the best of both worlds, allowing for a merger of old and new fans alike, and allowing us another chance to dive headfirst into the seemingly endless ocean that is Dragon Ball. So, there you have it. There's plenty to be excited for as fans of Dragon Ball right now. I'm curious though, are you giving into the hype of the new Budokai game? Or are you wishing they would take Dragon Ball in some new direction? I know we got Dragon Ball The Breakers last year, an asymmetrical game in the vein of Dead by Daylight, and I know we've also had some card games and mobile games in recent years as well. But which direction would you like to see Dragon Ball go in? If you're happy with what we've got and what we're set to get, then I'd love to hear what anime or manga you're loving most right now, anything outside of Dragon Ball, as well as any games you'd recommend. Who knows, maybe I'll cover them in a future video. Either way, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And please like and subscribe to the channel for more content on a weekly basis.